Welcome in to Cover One, the podcast. I'm Eric Turner. Today we are joined by Dave from Numb Bills Fan Podcast. What's going on, Dave?
Hey. What's up, Eric?
And my homie John Vincent coming in from LP. What's going on, John?
How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. There's a few topics we want to cover today, and obviously, first being the draft. So we're going to start right off the bat with that. John, your thoughts on the draft overall?
I really liked what they did. At first, I was a little apprehensive to say that, but looking at it in full now, and having a little time to digest it, I really think we made some some solid picks. We set ourselves up for next year as well. I mean, that's the one I think linchpin to the whole piece is the first round pick next year, and then obviously from what the pundits say. And the film work I've done, it looks like we may have gotten 2 to 3 starters out of this draft, and you can't ask for more than that.
Definitely. Dave, I'll throw it to you here. I know you talk about going into the draft that you talked about, it was a need-based draft. And, when you go into a draft and you say things like that, it kind of worries people because you want to get talent, whether, you always hear the term best player available. Well, you did say going in that it was a need-based draft for this new regime. So with that, taken into account, how were your thoughts on this draft?
Without making this too long, essentially I look at it like you got a new coaching staff. Let them get their groundwork laid. Let's see what the foundation is. The draft, the players they bring in, it tells everything.
Right.
So what are you doing? Are you bringing in all the right guys or bringing in the right pieces? Like, what is your philosophy going to be? Because whatever your railroad, your groundwork you're bringing in, I'm going to ding you as a fan to what you said. But at least let you get the ship rolling. Get a plateau. Let's see how it rolls like we did with Rex. So
right,
you're not going to correct the problems of, that Miami game, 10 guys on the field, run. Well, okay, Sean McDermott, here's your chance. Here's your players. How do you think you can make an impact and fix our problems of this defense right away? What are our needs? What are the turnkey? Who are the starters? Here's how we view our draft picks, So I looked at it like an equity draft. They got a lot of equity. What can we do to get impact players? And we want the quote-unquote right players. And now hearing about Foster's shoulder injury, which you called during the draft, first round, by the way, Eric, his shoulder must be that bad. Now that's out 2 weeks later. That kind of tells me, okay, it wasn't a character thing necessarily, but I like the guy they got in Tre'Davious White. So it just seemed like turnkey operation guys you don't got to turn your back on and worry about. So
right.
Does that make sense? I think they got 3 of those right off the bat. Maybe all of them, actually. The Boston College linebacker, that kid, his head sounds straight. You know what I mean? He seems so focused. And I know it's like all cliche to say that, but, we've gone – now since Buddy Nix, they had all high character guys, and then Whaley takes over. We get guys. We're just going to get monsters from the South,
right?
And a lot of the monsters haven't panned out. So,
no, I agree with you. Let me start at the top. I do like obviously Matt Milano, and you're seeing footage here of him. But I do want to go back to Trey White because John touched upon it. Getting that first round pick and filling a need was, a pretty big win for the Bills, especially considering, Tyrod Taylor is basically, having to prove himself again. And so getting a guy like, Tre'Davious White at the end of the first round, filling the need, getting a first round next year in a QB-heavy draft, in a draft overall that is, John, I know you like the draft next year a lot. You've been, kind of taking a look at some of the prospects next year. So I think that was a big win. And Tre'Davious White's going to be quite critical in this first year. And, I'm going to touch upon a few things here that, you're going to see in the video I put out this week on Trey White, because in this first year with McDermott and Frazier running the defense, that slot position is more critical than ever because, as we all know, our linebackers aren't the most athletic guys. All right. So that slot position is going to be critical because you got to have an intelligent player that's playing there, and because you're going to be running a lot of combo coverages, you're going to be relying on your slot player to pass on certain threats and receivers to your linebackers. So having a guy like Trey White that's smart, that knows how to do that, because they did that a lot at LSU last year, it's quite crucial.
And now, Eric, so primarily we'll probably be running out of the nickel package. Who do you suspect will be those two other linebackers in that particular scheme?
Oh, that's a great question. And from what I've heard, are you guys able to see that video now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. From what I heard, as far as linebackers go, obviously Lorenzo's going to play a big role this year. And I think he'll be one of the, 3-down linebackers that's out there. And I'm also hearing, as of right now, that Preston Brown is actually the mic. It's not Reggie Ragland like everyone thinks. And now it's still May, so it's still early. But that doesn't really surprise me, seeing as how he had serious injury. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I don't know whose account it was, but on Instagram a few months back during the national championship, they showed a bunch of Bills, Shaq Lawson, and Clemson players, Reggie Ragland, at the national championship game. And to me, Reggie Ragland looked like he gained a little weight. And so I know he's always had a weight issue. So pair that with an injury and him not really being able to do too much cardio because of that injury. I'm sure he's still recovering, physically, but also trying to get his weight down. What are your thoughts on that, John?
I agree. I mean, I think, if you have a leg injury, you're not going to be able, like you said, do a lot of cardio. So certainly he's probably got some work to do before he's 100% ready to go. And that's okay, though. You don't want to rush him back too early. I don't know exactly where he's at in his recovery, but, if we can get him at least good to go by training camp, that would I feel better about that. And obviously at that point you can see the physicality, which is his game, come out
Right.
more than when you're running around in shorts. So take your time with him. We're going to need him. Hopefully he pans out, because we need him. We need him to be more than what he's projected to be honest with you, especially this year if we want to do something big on our defense. Because as far as I'm concerned, our offense is good. Looking at it top to bottom, it looks like we have enough pieces. I like the pieces. I like our receiver pieces better this year than they were last year. Marquise Goodwin, I was never a huge fan of. Robert Woods, he was okay. But I think Zay Jones, Andre Holmes, and some of the other folks we brought in, I think is a big upgrade there. And then obviously, still having Shady and Tyrod and those other guys. And obviously our offensive line, I thought, got better too over this offseason. So I think our offense is good. It's really relying on this defense and guys like Shaq Lawson and Reggie Ragland. They need to step up because last year we didn't get much from them at all. Right.
No, I agree. So going on to, the second round, we're kind of bouncing around here. Zay Jones, someone obviously I've loved for a few months now. I've been on his bandwagon, driving the bus actually, because the stuff that he did in college, I just thought fit what Dennison wants to do on offense, but also fit with the type of quarterback that we have in Tyrod Taylor. And I've touched upon it several times of we're seeing a lot more zone and pattern matching. You got to have a guy that runs those short to intermediate area routes and, knows how to read zone coverage. So Dave, what were your thoughts on the Zay Jones pick? Do you think they did give up a pick to get him? What were your thoughts on that initially?
Again, watching these things, really watching your video breakdown was awesome up at Cover One and on YouTube. And it was great because I got to see why teams really looked at him possibly as a number 3 receiver in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what a lot of people thought that they didn't take him as their third, but I'm making no sense. Sorry. But I thought that he plays again, turnkey football, mature football. He's a hard worker. He shows up. He does his job. And what I like is he's a smart football player. You don't got to show him how to squat in the right spots between zones. He seems to have I like playing basketball because in hockey because you kind of get to bait people, and he's very, that's next level stuff. I mean, I relate it to some friends. I really like watching Jordan as a kid, and even if you watch a guy like Allen Iverson, the way they set up and they shake somebody and they get, you know what I mean? It's like
They're a step ahead of you.
Yeah, man. He already knows where he wants to be and how he's going to get there, and he has like 1 to 2 to 3 moves in the Rolodex of how he's going to shake you. And it's like when you watch Shady McCoy, he might just have like a small little dip one way, and then boom, he already has a foot underneath him to go the other way. And I mean, like Zay Jones is in the right spot at the right time all the damn time. I can't complain. And that's a lot more valuable because I look at a guy like Sammy Watkins. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm the biggest Clemson fan or I even watch anything. But I will tell you, he took a lot of screen passes in college, and he doesn't take that much now. You know, he wasn't asked to do what Zay Jones was asked to do. And Zay Jones was asked to do a lot of things, and you have a turnkey relationship with the guy and his coach already. You don't not make that pick. And I was kind of calling that at the draft when it was brought out to me at the draft party for that Rochester Sports Network thing at 34 Rush with the huddle. And I thought that Zay Jones, when you know, hey, you're nuts if you don't get Zay Jones. Just absolutely, you don't miss the opportunity to be – his feet aren't going to have to be as wet. He's not going to have to be nervous about coming into this team because he's got his coach who's had his back before. You know what I mean? I think that's very important. And
definitely. And I mean, that coach is Phil McGogan, and you know, he's a guy that obviously worked with him last year and told Zay, you know, if he wants to break the record at the college level, that he's going to have to learn all 5 positions, and he did. And that's so it shows his intelligence. Obviously, you can see his route running here, and this is his intelligence on this play. You know, of just squatting instead of crossing the face of that linebacker. I mean, that just shows his intelligence. And, you know, you touched upon his route running. Production, yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of people dinged him for his production and the competition he was playing against. But you know what? He produced. He carried out the role that, you know, this team asked of him. And so, to me, when I evaluate someone, I take that into account. You know, the type of offense, the air raid offense that he plays, and you got to take that into account when you're evaluating someone.
I'll be honest with you. He's actually – I'm sorry, Eric. He's actually like – you're talking to air raid. You're showing his tape in the background. And honestly, he's in the spot he needs to be before the ball's there. He's already – I think like this move right here where he shakes left, right, and just go – he finds that hole. Me, if that was me, my dumbass, I would be so like, oh, man, panicky. There's no way that's open. Like, no way. You know what I mean?
Let's not forget either. That's against Florida. So.
And who is this right here, John? Do you know who this is right here?
I can't see, but
number 20. That's Marcus May.
We'll be going against him.
Yep, he's on the Jets now. He'll be a starting safety. So when you talk about competition, I mean, the games that he did play against top-level competition, he produced. You know, the Floridas, the South Carolinas. The guy put up numbers. I don't care what anyone says. And you know what? Yeah, he's a little thin in the frame. You can see his lower body's a little, you know, thinner and more slim. But, you know, he's still – his arrow's pointing up. He still can increase his play strength. John, so with that second-round pick, we moved up to get him.
Jerry Rice type build, if you think about it. Like, there's a lot of Jerry Rice in that build right there. I'm not going to – I don't want to get crazy, but look at that build. To me, that's very Jerry Rice. 6'2", 200, very silky. Yeah, I think, you know, in the Senior Bowl, not to get off track, but the Senior Bowl – really showed me a lot about Zay Jones because he was down the board a little bit for me. You know, obviously he had the huge career at East Carolina, but once he went to the Senior Bowl and he dominated, and then you saw the swagger come out of him amongst his peers and some of the, you know, leadership qualities. It's like, okay, this guy has what it takes to be a pro. And so for us to go up and get him and give up a little bit, I'm certainly okay with.
Okay, and that's what I was worried about because a lot of people thought that, you know, we shouldn't have traded that. I think it was a 3rd-round pick to move up to get him.
He's healthy, man. He's healthy. He always stays healthy, dude. Like, and that's the thing. I could see his production honestly being similar to Sammy Watkins. If he's dead real with you, you have a guy like what he's doing right here on tape between. You know, you got that triangle of an offense between or an opportunity between the zones. He knows already pre-snap where to go. And to me, that is a way more important than a guy of we're just going to throw it up because let's be real here. These offensive coordinators, these guys are so scared of losing their damn jobs and everybody that they're not just going to – it's nice to talk about 50-50 balls, but I'm sick of hearing about it. Everybody talks around this time. He's just to throw it up and go get a guy. Baloney. You would take this guy all day. Like you were telling me, Eric, if you read progressions low to high, high to low, this guy does anything. You know what I mean? Like he could do anything you want. He could fit in with Tom Brady and, reading the field low to high. He could fit in with Rick Dennison with a nice play action offense. He's going to be in the right spot. And if you watch this tape, he's in the right spot before the quarterback even sees him there. So
and this is huge too, because you had mentioned it. You see the three players on one basically here covering Zay, and as soon as he cleared this zone defender, this corner, you see his eyes. His eyes are immediately on the quarterback, and he knows the passing window. So I mean that's stuff that may come natural to a lot of receivers, but some have to be taught it, and he just has that instincts. He's got the pedigree. I think it was a great pick for Buffalo to go up and get him, and one obviously I loved months ago, and you could kind of see it with the coaching, bringing that coach on. But I think his arrow, his ceiling it could be a 1. He could be a 1, honestly, in a year or two. He's that type of player. He's going to continue to build his body up and lift all year round. He's the type of guy. I think his ceiling is a 1. I think at the very least he's a 1B.
And that's the thing, Eric. He's got high football IQ. And, some of these other guys we've been bringing in, the juniors that, they're just mainly just specimens. Sometimes you got to take a step back with those guys just to show them, to teach them the fundamentals of the game, of the route tree, things like that. And talent alone is like I say it again. Talent alone will only take you so far. You got to be coached up. You got to have the IQ, and this guy seems to have both. So, like you said, his arrow's pointing straight up, and he's certainly going to be something to watch out for this year, especially if Sammy can stay healthy on the opposite side.
Right. And so the other pick that we had early in the draft on day 2 was moving up to get Deion Dawkins, tackle from Temple. What are your guys' thoughts on that, Dave? We'll start with you.
Well, I don't know much about him, but I will say when we were talking during the huddle, you and I had a chat going on during this thing when we were live, and the fact that Bills gave out 2/5 didn't bother me that much until you kind of brought it to my attention and reminded me, hey, wait a second. I was even hammering the table that, like, I was initially not psyched on Trey White because I'm like, wait a second. If the cornerbacks that could play what they're asking for in Leslie Frazier's defense, it's zone base. I'm thinking Antoine Winfield. I'm thinking, okay, you can get smaller guys. You know what I mean? So, those could be your 5th-round picks. So what are you doing getting this guy? Well, then when you research him, you hear, wait a second, he's listed as guard. I'm thinking this must be one of those Cordy Glenn guard, but he's a tackle situations, and the Kuipers of the world. Everybody gets excited. No, he's a guard. He's going to make a good guard. Cordy Glenn's going to be a good guard. He's never going to be able to play left tackle. Again, garbage. These guys know what they're doing. They know what they're looking at tape. I trust what the scouts have on that guy when it comes to offensive linemen. I know Quandra was a flop, but I'm sorry. Riding BMX, riding skateboards, riding snowboards, try to do fakie the other side. It ain't happening. If you're used to turning left, you ain't going to be able to turn right out. You know what I mean? So don't say that you can just flip a guy. It's a different step first. You know what I mean? Everything is different. The difference is this guy, if you hear his mentor, he was on with John Murphy. I forgot his name. This guy played everywhere. And he's willing to do anything. I think he is thrown right into the right tackle spot for competition. Worst case scenario, you have a depth guy. I think they're going to – it seems like every year with offensive lines, they always have some kind of shuffle. We're going to hear the same rapport of we got to get the best 5 out there. You know what I'm saying? So, look, I think this kid, no harm. No harm. You got depth. If Miller or Incognito gets hurt, who knows? I think Incognito is a model citizen, but you never know what coaches think. You never know what – you know what I mean? So, hey, people are getting older, but I don't believe in age. I think Incognito showing up last year, during everybody at these open practices in the beginning of the season, workouts last year. I think he's here to stay for a while, but you never know. Stuff happens. Eric Wood could get hurt. Maybe Royce will stop in at the center spot. And Next thing you know, maybe Mills goes down, but I think he could really be the starter. And I think if you take him in the 3rd round and you draft 2 fifths for him, that's I don't know. I ain't no Bill Parcells draft chart, but common sense of the hustle tells me that's almost a 2nd round pick if you're giving up 2 picks in the 5th of quality starters that we talked about. What do you guys think? He's got to what did they see? He sounds like turnkey again.
For me, Dave, what he brings is he's a powerful guy. He's tenacious. He's got athletic ability at the 2nd level. He does need to maybe get his frame a little bit more tightened up. He does need to tighten up a little bit, get in the gym a little bit better. But I think long term, you're looking at a guy that's tenacious. He's very physical. He's not the greatest when he's setting, but I think you can work on that. That's a technique thing. You got
Tyrod, man. That's a good time to work on it.
Exactly. So he'll have plenty of time to work on his technique. But, as far as the run game is concerned, I think it's an absolute home run far as his run game blocking ability. And at the least, he's a solid swing guard tackle that can obviously help towards your depth at offensive line because, as we all know, you don't want to lose any of those guys. And if you do, you better have one to fill in. And I think that is certainly what they were looking at when they drafted this guy in the 2nd round and moved up for him.
Yeah, and you know what? I hope that he can compete at right tackle. He played most of his career at left tackle. But if you're going up to get a guy like that and you're giving up those kind of assets, you got to expect that he's going to come in and compete at right tackle with Mills and would instantly be an upgrade. The run game, John, you touched upon it. The guy's a monster. He's got the power. He's got the length. He's got like 35-inch arms, which will help him not just in the run game but in the pass game. You'll see him lock out here, do a great job of locking out here, and look at that hole that opens up for that running back. So in the run game, I'm not worried. He's athletic. He had the best 3-cone, I believe. Best 3-cone of any of the offensive linemen, so he can get to the 2nd level with quickness. So at first he compete at right tackle, and then you're thinking of the future. If you need to move him at guard, he can be all pro at guard. There's no doubt about it. He'll be an all pro at guard in tight spaces, especially when it comes to pass protection. Because for me, the issue that I had with him, it wasn't the run game. It was a pass game, and he gave up a lot of inside rushes. And it's something that he's going to have to work on. You see, he gets mauled here on a spin move bull rush. That's just mainly technique because he does have power. It's just technique of getting his balance and his legs under him.
Right?
No, he's left tackle here. No, he's right here.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm not a technician. I'm not a technician, so I don't know technique. But I will say, as a wrestler, you got a wrestling coach in McDermott. He's going to see this stuff at practice. You're telling me the head coach, you're talking hand and body control. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, he's got long arms, and it doesn't seem like he really knows how to use them the best. And I think with some proper coaching, he could get there. Because if you look at Cyrus Kwanjo, man, he was almost like a punching bag for jokes. But then you're really watching him, and you're like, whoa, look how far he extended guys out. Look what happens when you kind of, you develop the player. So, you can't go wrong with this guy. You really can't. And if they like him that much, I think it's the versatility. I was bagging on the versatility homer crap, but I think that's a real thing.
Well, I think another point that we need to touch upon is, again, it's not just a position of need, but how does he fit? All right. And this is what I came up with. When I looked at the film, this is Phillip Walker. He's another mobile quarterback, very much like Tyrod. And the issue we've had with Tyrod is his field vision, his field awareness. And, some of that is because of his height, which this quarterback is very similar height to Tyrod. And a lot of that has to do with when you have a pocket here, you see a nice deep pocket. This is something Dennison's going to have to do and something we touch upon in cover one. You want your quarterback to have a nice deep pocket if he's short in stature, all right? So he could see over that line. Well, getting a guy like Dawkins here, a guy that's really long, that's athletic, has, decent feet, is you're going to have a nice deep pocket for the quarterback, for Tyrod Taylor here, to help his vision. And where do we need that vision? We need it primarily here in the middle of the field, right, guys?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, having a guy like Dawkins, the thing that the number one scheme fit for me with Dawkins is hopefully with Cordy Glenn and him manning the tackle positions, you're going to have these tackles on islands by themselves. You see islands here, island here. All right. If they can hold down these outside defensive ends and edge pressure, that means these three guys are accountable for the two inside interior defensive linemen and any extra blitzer. So it'll help keep the depth of the pocket and keep the pocket out of Tyrod's face, all while having a good size arc here to keep the pocket clean for Tyrod. So that is one thing I'm looking forward to, hopefully that Dawkins can bring to this offense.
I'll be honest with you. It sounds like this offense is going to be on steroids. It sounds like when they brought in Rick Dennison, this was one of the smartest plays that they could make, because maybe I'm just being a homer here, guys, but the whole McCoy thing when they were going after offensive coordinators, I think was just the smoke for people to go after. And right. I think Rick Dennison is really, guys like Sal Capaccio saying, "Oh, don't overplay the Rick Dennison move." Pretty much, they just need a guy. I think that's garbage too. I think if you had a guy who's already worked with your quarterback, again, another common sense move. This is a common sense move. This offense, I mean, we've talked. Give Tyrod Taylor that kind of space, and that for what they're asked to do, the center of the field. That's more yards for Tyrod, more yards for Charles Clay, and more yards for everything. And I just feel like these guys are going to be used to their full potential now. There's an offense that's going to be designed where everybody can be involved. Does that make sense?
Right. No, definitely. So, we touch upon the early draft picks, and so I think we can all agree at least 2 out of 3 are going to compete to start right off the bat. Hopefully 3 out of 3, because we're that, we need that kind of help at those positions that we upgraded at. So hopefully, those guys do, get some reps early and get some snaps early this year, get their feet wet. So another position in need was linebacker, and it's another we addressed it 2 times in this draft with Matt Milano out of BC and Tanner Vallejo, who I was really high on prior to the draft from Boise State. So, John, what were your thoughts on Milano? I'll go ahead and pull up some film for you. What were your thoughts on Milano initially?
I mean, honestly, initially, from what I knew about him, just coming out of the combine and things like that, he was an undersized linebacker, a little bit of movement skills, converted safety, smart player. And then you put on the film like this, you see a player that's very instinctive. So you can never have enough players that are instinctive, and he certainly fits that mold. I mean, he comes right across the whole other side of the field and just chops this guy right down. Reads that play to the max. I mean, washes him right out. So, I mean, if he can bring any type of I don't know what kind of role he's going to have on our defense right away.
Right.
But at the very minimum, you're getting looks like a tough player that looks like wants it, and it's going to certainly contribute right away on special teams. So for the 5th round, I think it's a good pick.
Dave, what are your thoughts on this? I know, with the new defense, roles are going to change. And speaking with some of the players on the Bills, the Sam and Will spot are interchangeable in this defense. So depending on whether it's a passing down versus running down, you're going to have certain guys at certain places. And right now, you can project that Lorenzo Alexander is going to start at the Sam spot. So, with Alexander's reps probably going to be even more this year. He's going to get a lot more snaps. He's going to play a bigger role, which is fine. And I mentioned on Twitter that, if he's going to be playing a bigger role on the defense, you're going to have guys that can fill his special teams role. But he said he's not going to let that happen. He's not going to come off the field on those for special teams. But getting a guy like Milano, he not only played the Sam at BC, and you'll see him here. He's aligned to the strength. But he did play that, Shaq Thompson role at BC, that Jabril Peppers role when Don Brown, the defensive coordinator in Michigan, was at BC in 2015. And this is clips from 2015. So you'll see him, he's good at leveraging the ball, another smart player from BC, a la Luke Kuechly, but just plays a different position. So with that said, Dave, what were your thoughts initially on this draft pick? And do you think that, he could put in some time on certain down and distance situations?
I think what you have here is you're talking about a deep draft. Well, I was anyways, and if this draft is that deep, well, we need linebackers. Where's the linebacker? Where's the linebacker? At least the old scouting staff was pretty good at picking linebackers late, so you got to trust their judgment. So Preston Brown, 3rd-round pick, he's worked out, solid, coach's kid. Well, in this draft, would he be a 5th-round pick? I don't know. So I'm kind of looking at these linebackers they picked up as in, can you develop these guys? You got Lorenzo Alexander. Looks like he's dropping a lot of weight doing that whole 30 diet. He's trying to get faster. The first thing I thought about with Sean McDermott is, who the hell is Luke Kuechly? Who is going to be that fast linebacker? Who are those fast linebackers going to be? If Reggie Ragland, McDermott brings up that thought about, he dropped that bomb about Reggie Ragland starting, he actually corrected himself, So I think that you're bringing in these linebackers and this guy, you can't go wrong with him. I mean, he seems very instinctive, and his sideline to sideline movement is like crazy. Like you see on the play you just posted up, the quarterback, he sees his eyes, he's already to the spot. Like that's film study. It's crazy. So I think it's very solid, and it's somebody to develop or maybe the staff don't even like. I don't know. I really don't know how you would use him if you're primarily a nickel at least 60% of the time. I'll be real with you. I got to see how it folds out, but I like the pick. I like the player.
Well, this is the thing with a guy like him, and you'll see here, they're manned up across the board, but they do have 3 linebackers on the field here. And what McDermott likes to do is the term he called it, the package that he called it in Carolina is the Buffalo nickel, is where he had basically his base defense, that'd be Shaq Thompson, Luke Kuechly, and Thomas Davis, their linebackers playing against, obviously passing personnel. And when you have a guy, a hybrid safety linebacker, like Matt Milano, you can still split him out and match him up on early downs, because on early downs, say an offense is an 11 personnel, they're still more likely to run it. So having a guy like that can still, protect this edge. And you see here John, you touch upon it. He's got good instincts, man. He takes a good angle on the ball, avoids the block by the tight end there, and makes a great play. I mean, that's just stuff you can't really teach. But, and it's also film study too, John, because, they saw these type of plays on film a lot from Duke. And I think Milano is going to be a developmental player that, could maybe steal a couple of snaps here and there, depending on, injuries or whatnot. But, I think that at the very least, he's going to contribute on special teams. He's that kind of worker. And they were getting killed in this game by Louisville. And you'll see him come in there, and he shows his competitive toughness. He shows his anger. And he's that kind of guy. He screams McDermott. He oozes McDermott type of player. And I do like the pick, and I just think it's going to, he's going to be a couple years away, but he will have a role on this defense.
And the thing is with him, Eric, is he diagnoses plays so fast that might be his angle to making the field on defense sooner than maybe some of us might project, is his diagnosis skills. So we'll see how that progresses.
All right, so we do have a caller in today. We're going to bring him on. Hey, Greg, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. What's up?
What's going on, brother? We're kind of going over the draft and, some of the picks. We're covering the linebackers that we picked up, Matt Milano and Tanner Vallejo. Do you have any thoughts on that? We just kind of finished up on Milano.
Yeah, well, I was listening to the conversation. You guys are talking more about specific players and how they plug in. If I could, I just wanted to go over an overview of my thoughts of what they're thinking with this draft, if that's all right.
Shoot.
So they take this draft, and you look at this schedule coming up, and it's brutal. I mean, they got 3 games against Super Bowl winning, participants, and then they got to go, 10-3 the rest of the way to squeak in. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they've set this up where they've drafted players that will be plug and play in 2 years. They've drafted the zone corner that's got to learn a system. Zone is harder to learn than just man cover. And then they got a wide receiver. They're typically not great out the gate. And then the lineman, where they can find if he's going to be an interior guy, maybe he takes over for Incognito or a right tackle. So all 3 of those players, I feel like, are picks for not this year but the year after. They got an extra first-round pick. And then they also, if you wanted to play right now, you're talking about linebackers. I think they're going to see what they got. And, guys, there is no Luke Kuechly on this team. But next year they can go after the safety and they can go after the linebackers that fit the system perfectly when everybody around it has learned, the system. And it'll be more plug and play where those guys, and then these guys they took this year, they can develop. That's just where I'm thinking. I don't think they're going all in. I would also expect them to throw the ball with Tyrod more than they have in the past. I know McDermott's a run-first guy, but they got to see what they have in him. They got to see if Watkins is worth the long-term extension or the franchise tag. And if he can't throw, I think maybe they'll figure that out soon. And if he falls on his face with his schedule, then maybe they go to one of the other quarterbacks that goes in there that they can throw the ball. And if it doesn't work out against this brutal schedule, well, then they have a high pick. What are your thoughts?
No, those are all great points, and I do think that with the trade and some of the picks, they are thinking about the future. And this year, as I mentioned when we were discussing Trey White, is a transition year. As much as McDermott and everyone wants to say that we're going to be playing a lot of zone defense, we just don't have that personnel. We don't have the Kuechlys, like you said, the linebackers at the second level to cover and shut down the middle of the field. So that's why a Trey White is that much more important. Having those intelligent players that can play the slot, play the nickel, and pass on guys to second level and work combo coverages across the middle of the field to help the Alexanders, the Preston Browns, the Humbers, or even Ragland for that matter. You got to have those intelligent players that can and play and mesh well together in this first year. It's going to be a transition, overall on offense and defense, because you had mentioned, we're going to pass more. Yeah, I'd like to see that. But until we lock up that right tackle position, and hopefully Dawkins can, and until someone steps up there, you're not going to be able to pass as much as we want to, because we gave up a lot of pressures last year, and a lot of that is on Tyrod, and a lot of that is on that offensive line. So you make some very good points as far as the future goes. John, how do you feel about that?
I agree. I mean, I don't think anyone's expecting us to make a Super Bowl run this year by any means, but with that being said, I'd still like to be competitive. You want to have something to build on going into the next year. I think our offense is in a position where we can still be competitive. I think more of it relies on how good our defense is going to turn out. And I think with this scheme, there's less, it's not as complex and crazy as Rex Ryan's defense. This is very watered down. It's run after it's run to the ball. Your D lineman can just get after it. So I think we have a chance to still be competitive this season. Whether or not that translates into a playoff berth or what have you, that's to be seen. I really think that, depends on how Tyrod really progresses and the defense comes out. But, yeah, I mean, this draft, 100%. I mean, is it going to be something that all three starters are going to come in and contribute and be Pro Bowls this year? Probably not. But come next year with the extra first-round picks we have going into that year, I think we set ourselves up nice for the future. And, you really can't ask for more than that. But I still would like to see us be competitive this year.
Yeah, I have a point on that.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
With the competitive, I don't think that they have to be not competitive this year. I think they're going to go for it like they are competitive. If it doesn't work out, fine. But if Marcel Darius comes back in shape and is the beast we all know he can be, and he plays that way all year, and Sammy Watkins is healthy and putting up the numbers that we all expected last year, maybe Tyrod is ready to step up and throw the ball and be the quarterback and just have him be the quarterback. We don't have to worry about it. There's still an outside chance I think this team could be good. You know what I mean? But they're playing it, They're hedging it where either way it goes, if these guys come in and are doing the things, they can be competitive. And if they're not, they're still in good shape. They're still working on grooming these draft picks and seeing what they have at, the most important position, which is quarterback. And I have one more take, and then I'll get out of your way, guys. Sammy Watkins, not picking up this 5th-year deal, if I may. Is that all right?
No, hit it.
Just one more point. All right, so, everybody's killing him. I think there's a couple things that's possibly going on. One, Sammy Watkins might not want to be here, and I hate to say that, but there's a good chance he's in a system where he's not being used. He keeps getting banged up. The fans are killing him. Maybe they know that he doesn't want to be here, and if that's the case, I'm fine with letting him walk. And we can have two-way that goes. We can franchise him and trade him like a peerless price. If he has a good year and he doesn't want to be here, we might be able to get a first-round pick for him if he has a good year. He's a superstar. Teams will give that up, and that's 3 first-round picks next year if it goes well. Or they can see him right out the gate that he's healthy and productive early in the year, and I'd say give him that long-term deal. And the reason is behind him, you're going to have huge contracts coming up with that draft class with Landry. You got, Evans and Odell Beckham. Those guys are going to set the trend for long-term contracts for wide receivers.
Right.
And the Bills might be smart to give him a blockbuster deal now, and in 2 years it seems like a bargain because they'll be saving money on a contract because he's not going to get the money that those guys would, but we could still lock him up long-term and give him a pretty penny. And I'd rather either give him the big contract this year or get out of the way and use that $30-40 million that you'd be spending on him early in the year towards players that could be here long term. Either way, however it works out, I think it was the right thing to do. Then spreading this out and keep him on the line and having that Gilmore situation.
I agree.
Right.
Dave, how do you feel
guys.
on this? Yep. Dave, go ahead and touch upon that Watkins situation. How did you feel about the Bills, not picking up that fifth-year option?
Watkins can't take it personal. The team already has believed in him with 2 first-round picks, and really, it's the smartest move the Bills could have made. I mean, you're looking for a general manager here. Let's be real. Like, you have a first-round pick for next year. Finally, the first time the Bills are looking for a key position, I'm like, yeah, you'd be dumb if you don't take this job. You have a quarterback, a Tyrod, who's going to be taking a new offense under his belt. He can – if there's anybody that's going to take on that criticism, it's going to be Tyrod. 2 years, you can't throw over the middle. Well, in camp last year, he was throwing over the middle a lot. I went to the practices. He was trying to. Once the lights are on, things change a little bit. But he's going to work on that. I think this offense is going to open up the middle of the field more. I mean, you've covered that a million times. It's what he's asked to do. So with Sammy Watkins, you're set up where, hey, we have an elite receiver. He might be worth the 17 mil or 18, however that franchise number works out next year. And if not, mid-season, he's going to know we're trying to get him for a deal, the Bills. But at the same time, the ball is in their court, even if they do re-sign with him. If Tyrod Taylor balls out and Zay Jones is what he is as advertised, Sammy Watkins is going to have touchdowns. And he would be – I don't want to say he would be dumb not to sign, but when you get that chemistry developed with Tyrod, McCoy has a good year. If this team plays to the potential that we feel it can, and he sees the love that this team shows by making the playoffs, he will be back in Buffalo with the long-term contract, and the Bills will love to do that. I don't see why not. At the same time, the flip side of that is if this is a whole new clean slate, I'm not at one Bills drive. I don't know McDermott's deal. But they do common sense moves. You already got the guy in the building. If you like him that much, you don't let him go.
And not only that, you put him in a position where he has to perform this year, right?
Yeah.
Because essentially it's a contract year. So he can't, obviously he's had some injuries over the last couple of years, which has really have him take a step back. And you can even say some of Tyrod's maybe underdevelopment had something to do with Sammy not being available and all the injuries we had at receiver and things like that. So, I almost give him a little bit of a pass, Tyrod, as far as some of his development is concerned, because he didn't have the pieces he was used to practicing with all offseason and so on. But for not picking up his option, it 100% makes sense. Let's see you prove it first. Let's see you prove it throughout a 16-game season. And at that point, I feel a lot better about either A, franchise tagging him, or B, giving him the long-term deal. Because, if you go ahead and pick up the option and then he's hurt for, 12 games this year, then you're on the hook again next year. And are we going to see that same trend year after year? And it doesn't make fiscal sense. And that's one thing that we got to start doing is making more fiscal sense with some of these contracts we're giving out.
You got a lot of flexibility with it.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And I don't have a problem, honestly. If they would have picked it up, I wouldn't have had a problem with it either way. Primarily because, you know what? As far as money goes, the Bills are going to have money next year. We've been, in cap trouble the last couple of years. But next year and the years, following that, with the salary cap going up on a yearly basis because of TV revenue and all that, I don't think money is going to be an issue. And again, if he balls out like Dave said this year, guess what? That's all good. And guess what? You're going to lock him up. I don't think he's going to hit the market. Now, if he gets injured, the Bills have the leverage then. It's a smart move, business wise. I don't have a problem with them not picking up that fifth year. And you know what? That doesn't mean that they're not in negotiations long term anyway. So I think people kind of flipped out over nothing there. And as far as his injuries go, yeah, I showed just a few minutes ago, he's had a long list of injuries, but he's also played through that. And you know what? McDermott appreciates guys like that, guys that came in. I mean, the injury, the foot injuries for a wide receiver, I mean, you can't get much worse as far as injuries go and pain threshold. So, having him work through that and still playing, and you know what? They probably brought him back a little too soon. But all in all, I think you got to give him some credit for working through those injuries as well.
Absolutely. And that's to his point. A lot of people beat him up for being injury prone or what have you. And he didn't have to play last year at the end of the season, and he did. And he actually had a pretty good few games there. So, that's some merit you got to give to him for doing that. So that certainly holds water with me. However, I still need to see the production. And does he feel slighted is kind of what I'm worried about. And I know that who cares, but he may not want to be here now that he didn't get picked up on that option, because all his peers in that draft class were all picked up. And, Sammy, we're good. So how does he feel about that? He may want to go out. That might put a chip on his shoulder. Now he's going to come out and put up 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. Who knows? But that's, I think, what we're hoping for is that type of response.
And in the end, to kind of wrap this Watkins talk up, in the end, money talks. So if he balls out this year, they're going to have to give him a top 5-7 contract. Well, guess what? He's earned it, honestly, for what he's played through all those injuries. And so I'm not worried about the Watkins situation. Does he feel slighted? Yeah. But guess what? That when you are, given that situation and when that's on your plate, okay, you either put up or shut up. And I think that's this year for Sammy Watkins. So we'll kind of wrap that topic up. Last draft pick that we hadn't covered real quick, and it's someone that you can go to cover1.net and check out the scouting report I did on linebacker from Boise State, Tanner Vallejo. Solid all-around player. He can blitz. He can cover. He's played inside. He's played outside. Go ahead and get to the site and kind of, get to know him a little bit better if you haven't been following, Boise State or Cover One for that matter. So on to the next topic I want to, kind of touch upon, and that's the GM search. And I know a lot of people, have their opinions on who we're bringing in to interview. And Dave, I'm going to start off with you here. I mean, do you think most people actually care about who we hire as Bills fans for the GM position?
I feel like anything, you go black, you go white, you go white, you go black. Sometimes you do a little bit of mixture of both. When Buddy Nix came in, it was, we're going to get a football guy. So we got football guys. But apparently we don't have people managers. And I was all about the football guy because we saw what happened when we dragged Marv Levy out of retirement and put him up there. We saw what happened with Russ Brandon. We saw what happened with whatever. And, sometimes I don't want to bag on Russ because when you hear information come out that how handcuffed Steve Tasker came out on the John Murphy show and was talking about how handcuffed really the organization was because they were worried about Rolf Wilson being 80 years old. At 1990, he was an old guy. So how are you going to bring in these guys and not next thing you get the Greg Williams of the world, bites at the chance to get a coaching job. You get the Chan Gailey, you get the Dick Duran. When I saw that pop up on the screen as a kid. But
let me interrupt you, Dave. Does it worry you that McDermott appears to have most of the control? So bringing in this guy, whether – right. So I mean, does that worry you, Dave and John? Because a lot of people, it does worry them. For me personally, it doesn't worry me because you know what? I don't know. I'm buying into McDermott. I'm all in on McDermott. I think he's been groomed. I think he knows how to. He's been through organizations that know how to run things from a talent standpoint on the field and from a value standpoint, whether it be in the draft, free agency, scouting, whatever. So I mean, does it worry you in that respect, Dave?
Yeah, it kind of does. But at the same time, that's the way things are going. And one thing that doesn't make sense, and I've had talk about this immediately with some people is that I trust is that the way things are going? Because it makes a lot of sense if you have a people manager, a general manager, I'm almost thinking really should just generally manage people. Like, here's the tools. What do you need, coach? I'm going to go get them. What are the scouts that we need for this department? Like, we want guys with the pedigree who've done it, who have found talent, but we also want people who are easy to work with. And I'm not saying Whaley was or wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's where there's smoke, there's fire apparently, and it's happened 3 coaching staffs allegedly. Maybe Pegula said, hey, how can you work with this guy? Who's on your short list, McDermott? And honestly, the coach should be finding the talent. It's just how much time does he have in a day? Frankly, I think the coaches should be hiring guys like us to be like, hey, don't worry, man. I'll line up your playing schedules for the players and the other stuff. I hear about all that dumb head coach stuff that they have to do. It's like, yo, you make X amount of millions a year. Dollars, give me $50,000 a year. I'll line up some schedules for you, dude. Like, no joke. Because that guy should be finding talent. That guy should be like in I hate to be Russ Brandon here, in lockstep with the rest of the scouts and be like, I want guys like this. This is what fits my team. At the same time, they're not dumb. They already know the systems are running. So really, you need a people manager. I never thought.
Where do you stand on this, John?
I mean, Dave kind of hit it. You know, you got to have a guy that the head coach can work in unison with. You got to have a guy that the head coach has a feel for the college game, for the pro game. You know, a guy that can certainly find talent for your coach to evaluate. Like, all right, here are a couple guys that's going to fit your scheme. Take a look at them. Let me know what you think. But if he's making all the calls anyway, and that's McDermott, you know, is this GM just a figurehead? Is he a puppet? What exactly is his role going to be? And that's something that, you know, I would want to know first before, you know, I bought into any of these particular candidates. Because at the end of the day, if this guy's just a figurehead and he's just generally managing, like Dave said, then I don't even know if that's someone that we even need to entertain, right? I mean, get a pro personnel guy in that understands talent, and that can be on the same page with McDermott and leave it at that. But to have a guy overseeing your entire football operations that might not have really much say, to me, is semantics. Doesn't make any sense.
And you know, you touched upon if McDermott's going to have the power, you want a guy right below him that, you know, maybe he's worked with or has some kind of rapport with, and that's why a few of the names they brought in. One being, you know, Brett Veach from Kansas City, who is a co-director of player personnel in Kansas City, worked his way up through the Eagles organization. What's that?
Is that someone they actually interviewed already? So I know there's been a lot of candidates that are people talking about him being a candidate. I haven't heard of him actually being offered any type of interview or anything like that yet.
Right. No, I haven't seen that he's been interviewed yet, but he's a guy that, you know, Dan Hatman from the Scouting Academy, when I had him on last week, said, you know, a lot of people want to immediately, you know, link, you know, Sean McDermott to the Carolina, you know, personnel guys, but most of McDermott's personnel years were in Philly, and Veach is one of those guys that was an assistant to Andy Reid. You know, worked on both the scouting, both sides of the house, whether it be pro scouting or, you know, college scouting. So he's been, you know, cross-trained in that way. Brett Veach is another one, another guy that's been talked about, has been, you know, I know they interviewed Brett, was it Bean from Carolina Panthers? He's another guy that they, you know, had interviewed, and that's a guy that's assistant GM in hold on one second, let me bring it up, in Carolina. So, I mean, these are guys that have worked with, you know, worked with Sean McDermott before, and that is going to be important. That rapport is going to be extremely important.
Absolutely. And that's what you need, though. You need a guy that every day you can walk into their offices, have serious conversations, be on the same page. And you're not going to always have 100% the same views, but if you can find common ground, you'll be in a good spot. And I think that's one thing with Whaley. There would seem to be a little bit of a struggle with that. Anytime there was some sort of a dispute, maybe a player or what have you, it seemed like there was always some sort of turmoil to come out from that, whether it's the Tyrod deal, so on and so forth. So, you know, we'll see how this plays out, Eric. I mean, again, is it just a figurehead, or is this person going to have legitimate say over the roster, over the coaching staff, training staff, things like that? And if so, it better be the right guy, because I expect these particular positions to be filled for, you know, several years and not just someone that's in and out, because that's how organizations stay at the bottom of the league.
Definitely. And they have, a couple guys lined up, one being Trey Brown. He was a director of college scouting for Philly. He started, you can see on the screen, he started with the Patriots back in 2010 and through 2012 before jumping on as an area scout with the Eagles. So you can see that, the guys that they're bringing in, they have McDermott ties. That not whether it's personally having worked with them or just the organizations that they work for. So right now, I think, honestly, my favorite guy is the one from Kansas City, Brett Veach. I think he's paid his dues as a scout. I think, he's come through a good organization. Not only has he learned under Andy Reid, because when he worked under Andy Reid, he worked as his personal assistant. And at that time, Andy Reid was dealing with the personnel side. He had the type of power that McDermott appears to have in Buffalo. So a guy like Brett Veach learned a ton from Andy Reid from the personnel standpoint and from the coaching standpoint, because typically that assistant position under the head coach usually heads into the domain of becoming a coach. But Veach went into the personnel side, said he immediately clicked with that, the scouting portion of it. So I think Veach is a big name to keep an eye on in the
Eric,
future.
think about this as well, is Kansas City, for all intents and purposes, is loaded with talent. I mean, obviously you can make an argument with their quarterback, but defensively loaded. I mean, some of these guys they're picking up in the later rounds, like Ware and Hill and guys like that are just dynamite. And I think Brett Veach probably has a lot to do with that. So if he can find these diamonds in the rough late or early, then yes, let's go, because we need as much talent as we can get on this roster. And he seems like he knows what he's talking about and doing.
Yeah, he's a big name. Dave, do you have any thoughts on Veach? Have you had a chance to look at it?
I'll be honest with you guys. This is gonna go off the rails here quick right now, so ready for it. I could be totally wrong, but I believe in Japanese culture. The business guys, they go out, they go to strip clubs together, they do dirty things, they do whatever, they hang out. You know what I mean? And there's a narrative going around that, hey, we don't want this player personnel guy and the GM and the coach and the owner being best friends or whatever. No, actually I do. I want to make it where for Eric Turner, I want to show up, dude, and I want to make you the scout. I want to make it, hey, man, I really appreciate the work you do. And if you're a betting man, I don't see how that Leach character from Kansas City does not become that turnkey operator. I mean, they already work together. And one thing I'm thinking about with Andy Reid over the years is I've always loved Andy Reid, first of all. You can't let's be real here. He goes to Kansas City, and they're immediately whooping the crap out of the Bills. The Bills were owning him before he went to KC. And it was a similar roster when he was whooping the crap out of the Bills, because KC didn't have their crap together for a long time. Well, just going through a Rolodex of coaches. And I'll be real with you. He could not. I mean, how do you not add these two together to work together? They already worked together. They came up under the same guy. I just hope that behind the scenes, they are the guys that, hey, man, I really liked you, not just, oh, man, I freaking that guy. No, I don't want to work with him, even though his resume lines up. I just hope that they're all together on a lot of things. And honestly, I think it's okay to have a socially acceptable relationship with the people you're working with, because that makes you want to work with them. And that's what you need. Terry Pagula is preaching team here. And he's not going to bash on somebody in the media, but one thing he said about the Whaley deal was being in a team. I want to work as a team. It sounds like they tried to let Whaley and the department work as a team, and something happened that wasn't team and didn't work out. So I don't know. No one else has said that, but if you want to connect those dots from the presser, I think if you're a betting man, the guy from KC should get the job, and that's who I would roll with too. I don't want the Bean character out there from Carolina, because frankly, he does not have the scouting pedigree. He does not have the player pedigree. I don't like that. I'm sorry. I need a guy who's not going to look at this like we need to take so-and-so for a marketing move, or I'm going to listen to more of the front office side of things. No. I still want to combine that football guy. LaShawn McCoy went to bat for the Leach guy as well. I think that's nice. So,
right. No, I and from all reports, John had mentioned it. Who knows if he's even interviewed it? From what I've read, he hasn't. But I just think he's a guy, in Kansas City and going back to Philly that is a name that they should interview if they haven't yet. I mean, not only did he work under Andy Reid when he was in Philly and in Kansas City, but he also learned under John Dorsey, who comes from the Ron Wolf tree. So again, not only did he learn from his time in Philly, he learned under a big name in the scouting community and evaluating community in John Dorsey, and that to me means something. And he's gained a wealth of knowledge, and you can see him moving up the ranks, and eventually it's going to happen. Whether it's too soon right now, but it's going to happen. And to Dave's point, that rapport, and if McDermott and the Pagulas are bringing in this guy, and he's going to work with or under McDermott, where McDermott has most of the control, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, not just because of the direction and the type of person that McDermott is, but I think it's a good thing because guess what? Now you're going to have a guy that you've worked with or have really good relations with, and you're going to trust each other. So when that guy, the point man for McDermott being hypothetically, say it's Brett, Veach, if you're asking for an opinion, you're going to value that opinion. And maybe McDermott didn't value Whaley's opinion because of, things that have occurred, behind closed doors. We don't know any of that, but I think that does matter. And I don't care who has control. I just want them working together and, and thinking about the future. And all accounts from this draft, I mean, who did we trade with? We traded with Kansas City. What coach did we bring in from Kansas City? David Culley. Now he's coaching Tyrod Taylor. So, I mean, there are ties and things like this happen all the time. It's not just the Bills. A lot of people want to look at it as dysfunction. I think this is quite normal, and we're setting up the franchise for the future.
You got to think too, Eric, is McDermott needs a guy he can trust because, like Dave was saying, he can't do everything. He can't scout 365. He has a team to coach. So he needs to rely on his general manager to be out there looking either on the free agent market or with the draft, making sure he has the right scouts in place so he can rely and trust the opinions and the evaluations that he's bringing back to them. And I think that's what McDermott's looking for, is a guy he can trust. So when he's coaching his team, this guy's behind the scenes looking to better the roster. And
right.
Counts, Veach seems to be, at least in our opinion, and even some of the players have chimed in and said to bring him in, is Veach. And it's from his resume, it looks like he's in a position now where he's earned that type of recognition, and whether or not he gets the position or even gets an interview, it's something to look out for. And I would certainly give my blessing to it if it ended up happening. So, yeah, but it's essentially, it breaks down to, can McDermott trust this person to handle the personnel while he's coaching the team? And I think that's where it breaks down.
No, I agree. So as far as the GM goes, hopefully that gets taken care of quite soon. A lot of people also pointed to to this process as dysfunction because we did it post-draft. That's the smart thing to do. You do it post-draft. You don't do it pre-draft because then you're cutting away scouts and personnel people that have intel on your draft board and people that have been working hand in hand with these players and prospects on a weekly basis. People that have had contact with players that you're going to draft, and that only that people that know certain information and specific information, whether it be character-wise or weaknesses and strengths on the field. So I think the move as far as firing the staff after was smart. I don't think it's dysfunctional. It allows the new GM once hired to get his staff in place and pull his guys from other organizations and guys that have paid their dues. So with that said, go ahead.
There's one guy that I think we failed to mention that should at least get a look at the general manager position, and his name is Eric Turner. I don't know if you know him or not.
Yeah, I wish, John.
Hey, man, I trust you over some of these other guys, that's for sure.
I was just telling him, yo, why are you not, hitting up whoever you might know, if you know anybody, hey, man, just had these guys check out my website because, when crap breaks, I actually do look at the film right away. I mean, Eric, you're really not trying to pat your butt here, dude, but
Oh, thank
I
you.
mean, you could probably do some of this. I mean, you break things down, you edit things, you find clips so quick. I mean, you're a valuable resource, so.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And, and I love having you guys on and just to bring different angles. And, of course, I love doing the film. And would I want to be a scout? Absolutely. But I got to give it to these guys that are, they've paid their dues for many years. They have more resources. They have more networks. And that's just the way things go. So, whoever they do pick to, head that personnel department, I'm on board, and I'm not a fence sitter, and I like McDermott. I like what he stands for. I like the people he's brought in, as far as, players go, as far as staff goes. He can't do it all, so he's got to have a guy that he does trust. You guys said it. And, and we saw that from the get-go and the staff that he brought in. Experienced guys that he has connections to, and guys that he's wanted to work with for many years. So I think that was, a good way to wrap up that segment. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? It's Sunday Funday, so shoot from the hip. What you got?
I'll bring something up. I think everybody on this roster is kind of on notice here with this new coaching staff, and because they're stacking talent upon talent, and it seems like, oh, yeah, we're worried about this position. Okay, well, we're going to bring in 3 other guys. Like, look at Tyrod Taylor, Cardale Jones, Peterman, TJ Yates. You brought up the point to me that you can see TJ Yates being the odd man out. And I'll be honest with you, if Peterman can run his offense as close to TJ Yates by the end of training camp, I think TJ Yates is out. You're saving money.
Right.
So, I mean, if
and you're thinking about the future.
Right. They're not going to keep 4 QBs.
Right. But I'll be honest with you, too. Is Cardale Jones that much of a talent where if his footwork is not up to par this training camp and he ain't working his McNuggets off to correct mistakes because you had to break habits that you've developed your whole life, is he that much of a talent where you don't cut him, or do you think he's cuttable with this new staff? Because with this new staff, I'm really worried, hey, what we invested in the past doesn't matter, which I think is a dumb business move, and the Bagulas are not stupid as far as equity. So you don't get rid of assets that quick. So what do you think? Is Cardale Jones a make or break, or like Peter?
Who's the odd man out for you, John?
I mean, I think 100% Cardale is. I don't want to say he's the odd man out, but I certainly think that he could be. If he didn't take a big step over the summer, over this past year, because he's essentially a rookie again. Let's be honest, because you got a new coaching staff in. You got a whole new system. You're gonna have to learn everything new, just like everyone else. So there is no. I wouldn't say his place is set for him. TJ Yates, how much is he gonna give you if you needed to put him in the game? I might trust him more than Cardale, maybe at this particular moment. So I think for sure you're seeing Peterman and Tyrod. Those are guys I would think are going to stick to the roster, barring any cataclysmic events. And then obviously I think it's between TJ Yates and Cardale. Who's going to outperform each other when the lights are on, either in preseason or in training camp? And it wouldn't surprise me if Cardale got let go. It really wouldn't. So and I wouldn't be totally upset with that either. Although we did give up a 4th round pick to get him, and you can still find talent in the 4th round. So yeah, I can see Cardale being out if he doesn't perform 100%.
I mean, we got to ask ourselves too. Does Cardale fit this scheme? Because he's got a cannon for an arm. And what he did in college, it was very minimal as far as snaps go. So we were still learning a lot about him once we drafted him. So, I mean, who knows? Where he fits in this scheme, honestly. And Peterman, he's a definitive fit. He's accurate. He can throw on the run. The thing I love about him is his poise in the pocket. You're going to see, it's not specifically this play, but he'll stand in the pocket knowing a big hit's coming, and he'll make the throw. And on this one, look at this. He extends the play with his feet, and that fullback gets uncovered, and he can deliver to him while taking the big hit. So, I think Peterman's game easily transitions and easily matches with what Dennison wants to do on offense. So I do think it is going to be between Cardale Jones and TJ Yates. And, of course, Yates was brought in because he knows the system. He's going to be a great asset in the, in the film room, what to look for, what not to look for, where to have your eyes, things like that. Little things that, guys that, have played in specific schemes, whether it be on offense or defense, have knowledge about and have been through the reps and have been through game experience in that specific scheme. So I do think it is going to come to Cardale Jones and TJ Yates. John, do you think they'll keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks?
I think they'll keep 3.
Okay.
It's tough, but I think they'll keep 3. And now that you mentioned TJ Yates has some experience, and I overlooked that within Dennis's system, it really starts to look like Cardale could get pushed get phased out, especially if he doesn't pick up the system quick enough and perform. So I could see his rolling with Yates, Peterman, and Tyrod through this year, 100%.
See, and I don't know how I feel about that. Go ahead, Dave.
Eric, I'm sorry, Eric. That was actually the point I brought up to you. First round of the draft, we were talking before the draft started on the phone, and I was like, dude, TJ Yates, I think, is a lock. I love that they brought him in, but you brought up the point that they brought in Hoyer first, and he was almost a backup. But Rick Dennison, like a backup plan, Rick Dennison was in contact with TJ Yates since the offseason broke. So, and they said it was kind of – TJ Yates made it sound like it was just like a matter of time, and it's like, if that's Dennison's boy, is this like a Chan Gailey, Tyler Thigpen situation where you're paying a guy? I don't know what TJ Yates is getting paid, but Thigpen was getting $4 million a year to suck, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he came in and win half your games, my ass. He ain't winning you anything. It wasn't what he was doing in Kansas City for, how I just mentioned. I lost his name. I'm sorry.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I hope he's not just his boy because I want to see Cardale and Peterman on the team. Frankly.
Hey, if you're thinking about the future, Dave, you don't keep TJ Yates over even Cardale for that matter, because especially if we want to be competitive this year. But if for some reason we're not, you got to think about the future. You got to figure out what assets you have in Cardale Jones if you can get anything for him. If you decide that he's not a fit and want to think about the future, because having TJ Yates as a 2 or 3, it's not really doing you much. I mean, as far as on the field goes in future.
I think it is even on the field game time, because TJ Yates is essentially, if I'm understanding his role correctly, is kind of like it's like a second coach essentially.
Extension of the coach, right?
Right, it's an extension of the coach. So on those third downs late in the game, he runs over to the sideline. He can come over to TJ Yates, and TJ Yates can say, hey, man, look for this. This is what we're going to do in this situation. Cardale is not going to be able to give you that kind of insight as the third or second string backup. I think there's value in that, having that type of player on your team. And then, like I said, if in a pinch you need to play a second or third string guy, he knows your offense already, so he might be able to get you through a game and maybe win you the next one. So I think in that particular scenario, I think there's value to TJ Yates as the third string quarterback, or even the second string if he earns it, just for the fact of, like you said, being an extension of the coach, late in the game, third downs, on the sideline, like, hey, man, listen, this is what you want to look for on this, because typically those type of players are the guys that end up being good head coaches. And I'm not saying he's that, or I even know if he's got any of that type of qualities, but typically if he's coming in, if they brought him in, it's for that role. And I think there's value in that role.
No, that's a valid point.
I'll be honest with you too. A little wild card thought here, and for the fantasy football players out there, they would appreciate this thought. If Peterman and Cardale Jones, he's so intelligent. He's a funny dude. He's very quick-witted. That shows a lot of, quick intelligence. It shows his improvisational skills on the field that we've seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a wild card because you don't have much tape on him. If Peterman can run an offense and pretty much run it as well or close to TJ Yates and just gets it, TJ Yates has to be gone because you don't have any film on Peterman. You have a lot of games on TJ Yates where, he struggles with this. We're going to at least hit him with this 9 out of 10 plays out of the first 10 plays. Let's see how he works. Let's see if he's corrected his Achilles heel. There's so much tape on TJ Yates. I'd almost rather kind of get that weird. I'd rather play the rookie if he's that close because with with Peterman, you're not teaching Peterman footwork. You're not teaching him how to throw the damn ball. You're teaching him the offense, which he already knows. And so in this offense, Eric, is he going to be reading low to high or high to low? What are the progressions going to go? Because if he is going to go low to high, and you got guys like Zay Jones, you could run Sammy on some drag routes or screens or whatever you want to do. You got so many quote-unquote playmakers. I think Peterman fits more on the roster easier.
I'll start with this. Okay, John, you had mentioned having Yates, is valuable as a number 3. Okay, so as a number 3, he's not going to dress, right? On game day, he's not going to dress?
Most likely not.
Okay, and so I want Peterman. I think he'll be the backup. I want him taking those backup reps, and I want him dressing on game day because he's the future as far as, whether it be just a backup, which is an important role nowadays. So I would like to have him, dress. So Yates would, be holding the clipboard, which is fine. Again, it does play a role. I have no problem with, him staying as a 3, and that's why I think it is between Yates and Cardale as far as, that last QB spot on the roster.
And who's more valuable in street clothes on the sidelining on game day, Eric?
Cardale. No, it's very true.
That's what essentially what you're looking at for the 53-man roster. Who's more valuable in sweats on game day? It's TJ Yates. I know that's kind of like who even cares, but there is a little bit of value into that. And hopefully we don't have to really get down that far on the depth chart to see if he can actually play or not. But if you're going to keep 3 quarterbacks and Cardale hasn't made the jump or is his comprehension skills are just not there where he can learn these systems quick enough, then unfortunately we would have to let him go and keep the veteran that knows the system that can help out, like I said, with the clipboard on game days and in the meeting rooms.
Right. I was never high on Cardale coming out. I never thought that he could develop into a starter. Yeah. I was never on that bandwagon. So as far as, where each fits in this offense, whether Peterman's going to be reading low to high, high to low, Dave, I mean, considering his arm strength and what he was asked to do under Matt Canada at Pittsburgh, he's definitely a low to high guy. Now, if they want to go deep, it's something that has to be calculated, and he has to usually be the first read because he can't read one to 2 receivers here, turn to his left, and then throw deep on the streak down here. It's got to be an early, it's got to be a hot route, a glance route where if he has a certain look, he's going to throw it deep. He can't, that third option can't be that streak, can't be that 9 route because he doesn't have that type of arm that's going to, push it down the field, especially if the weather gets nasty. So I do think he's a low to high guy. I think Tyrod has a little more upside as far as arm talent goes because Tyrod can sling it down the field late in progressions. But if we're talking about backup, I think Peterman it has what it takes. And, yeah, TJ Yates could teach him a lot having been in this offense before.
It's a turnkey operation again, guys. You have another person to teach the system. I mean, the Bills brought in the safety from Carolina, right, for a visit at least. So, I mean, it's another turnkey operation. But I'll be honest with you guys. I hope I never see these backups play because, I don't feel that TJ Yates and Peterman offer any flash because if he's just one-dimensional and he has to do calculated deep routes, deep balls, they're going to tell him, okay, throw the deep ball. And they're just going to bring everything down towards him. And it's really – I mean, we've seen too many quarterbacks that they just come in flat. And you're talking to the guy who really thought that Brian Brohm should have won the quarterback competition. I didn't think that Brian Brohm got a fair shake back with Trent Edwards and Fitzpatrick. And I really mean that. I thought that he came out and he got rid of the ball quick, calculated in preseason. And I don't know what happened behind the scenes or where he's not in the league. So he really must be that hard to work with and that much of a whatever. So he never got another shot, really. So, I mean, take my judgment as you will.
Let me ask you this, fellas. So real quick. So hypothetically, say Tyrod has a pretty good year, right? And let's say we win maybe 9-10 games, just miss or make a wild card berth. Knowing that we have these 2 first-round picks next year, and it's in a very deep potentially deep quarterback class where you have high-end blue-chip type talent coming out, what do you do as an organization? Do you still package those picks up, move up and get your top-end quarterback that could be your guy for 10, 15 years possibly? Or do you sit back and, maybe take a Derwin James or some other type of big-time talent that's available and stick with Tyrod? I mean, I think they put themselves in a little bit of a situation, whether to be good or to be bad. Like they kind of, it could be a position where, okay, Tyrod performs and they got the 2 first-round picks. So you don't use them, or do you still go after that top-end talent next year? Even though he had a pretty good season. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, I'll start. I'll say that, it's much too early for that to get into that, because, you could have the top 3 quarterbacks, right now, and you're only going to have one by the end of next, college season that is actually worth a top 10 pick or a top 15 pick. So, I mean, I think it's much too early for that, and having, not having seen the season play out still from Tyrod's standpoint, I think that's too early. So, but you know what? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Just a hypothetical. That's all.
Right. I mean, I think you still got to keep it in the back of your mind as far as the organization goes and the quarterback position, because if all of his weapons are there for Tyrod, and he does have a good season, I mean, he's got what it takes to win a few games and win some games for you. Maybe carry the team. Maybe he shows that this year with the receiving group he has. We don't know. I mean, that's something to be determined. But I don't think you can bank on him. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I will say that.
So that's my point.
Yeah, I don't think
he's a franchise quarterback. But although he did maybe perform okay this coming up season, what do you do?
Well, I mean, who in the draft is next year? We don't know that yet. So I can't compare the two yet until the seasons are played out. That's where I'm with that hypothetical that you threw at me. Dave, where are you at?
Where I'm at is Tyrod Taylor's offense. He's played in this offense before. If he comes to fruition at baseline, if this let's not forget, guys, if this defense was better, we're not complaining about anything. Okay, so
they scored points last year on offense.
You know what I'm saying? Like, last I checked, you don't see the number 6 passing team go, man, I really wish we had more rushing yards. No, that's a made-up thing. Real football guys don't care how you win the game. They don't care. But what you have here is you have the Bills no matter what, with equity and money in the bank, because next year if this team fails, you know what? We're going to go and get a quarterback. That's what we're going to do. They got 2 first-round picks, and all the fans will be so happy. They're going to get the best guy in the draft. If whatever sorry-ass team has a quarterback that's up there already, you find one of those 5, you go get him, and now the dumb, ignorant fan base of that half is like, oh, here's our savior. Then you rush him to start, and the cycle rinse repeats again. And, hey, you got to give him a second year in the offense. I'm sick of that. But what you have here, you have a situation of equity for the next GM and for the future, and you can't go wrong. If Sammy leaves, good, you got 2 first picks, get that guy.
They played it smart. Yes, they played it smart.
We're in a win-win situation. So if Tyrod pans out, we got 2 first-round picks next year to add to the team. If he doesn't, we got 2 first-round picks to go up and try QB. So, yeah, we're in a win-win situation. And what's nice is we get to watch 2 teams this year. We get to root against this Kansas City Chiefs and for the Bills. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm excited for this season because there's a lot of storylines and by all intents and purposes, it's really the schedule, I think, which could be our Achilles heel this year. But we'll see. Time will tell.
So one last topic, real quick. Let's touch upon it. Undrafted free agents. Dave, is there anyone in particular that you're interested in that's still on the market that could add some value to the roster?
All right. So since I'm not going to pretend like I actually read the entire list, Erik, if there was a couple guys on this list, they brought in a tight end that's more of a blocking tight end, could sneak out during red zones. They brought in another tight end who's the complete opposite, tall, lanky. They brought in the running back from UB. They brought in a receiver who allegedly has the best hands in the draft. Sounds like a great route runner, like Chris Routes. Who in this draft or these undrafted guys, when you hear best hands in the draft, that's a guy I instantly think, okay, I want to keep my eye on him, and you grow an attachment to him. I did it with Marcus Easley when they drafted him in the 4th round. He didn't have much play time at UConn. Look at his measurables. Who do you see, both of you guys actually, obviously, that you guys have interest in?
John, you want to start us off?
I'm interested to see how this running back plays out because, I thought running back before we lost Gillislee was a position of strength front to back. Now with losing him, I feel like we might have took a step back with that being a position of strength. Of course, we're top heavy but shady, and it's always good. So I want to see if this running back can, find a role and make some moves, because Gillislee, in my opinion, was a top 20 player on our team regardless of position. So to fill that role, I'd like to see this guy be able to do that. Plus, he's a hometown guy or a UB guy, so I'm always rooting for them guys as well.
Yeah, he went to UB, and I believe he went to high school at Sweet Home. So he is purely a hometown guy, and I'm sure that a lot of scouts and local media have seen play, not just at the college level, but at the high school level. And Sweet Home's a powerhouse when it comes, to football over the last few years. So he definitely has some nice moves, and you can see some of these highlights. He seems like he's that one-cut type of back. Yeah, he gets upfield quick, man. And I haven't
like
really,
man. Really, honestly,
I haven't really dove in on him, honestly. But one guy that I had mentioned was Dakeil Shorts from West Virginia. I do think he's a guy. When I started researching him, because the receiver position overall, guys, this year, it's going to be a great competition, and one that I'm going to be paying close attention to, because we have so many different types of players. We have players from other regimes. We have players that were brought off the street. We have guys that are signed to free agency. I mean, they're a good mix of slot receivers, guys that can play, the flanker, guys that, that are hands guys, possession receivers, guys that work well over the middle. And that's what Shorts was at West Virginia. He was termed Mr. Reliable, from West Virginia fans and coaches and players. And, he was a guy that when they needed a big play, they threw it to him. And so I do like his game. He's not a burner by any means, but he is that guy, much like Zay Jones, that can, catch the ball in tight windows, a guy that catches it with his hands, that can go up and get it for the most part, not necessarily because of his size, but just of his ball tracking skills. So Shorts is a guy that, I'll be keeping an eye on just because of the state of the receiver position. I do think that's going to be fun to watch overall.
What do you think about as far as, is there anybody that you think could potentially off the bat there's a spot for him on the roster? I think the running back could have a decent shot at hanging around, maybe on a practice squad, because if he's as advertised, I feel like the UB players the last few years, I mean, the coach they have is nobody to slouch on. His name is slipping my mind right now, but he's won a lot before he went to UB. So these players are transferring over to the NFL pretty decent, So I like that they picked him up. He's a one-cut guy. So I see Brandon Oliver, how well he does and did and performed for what he was asked to do. You see Khalil Mack. Obviously, he's an elite talent, but I mean,
James Starks is another back.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to transfer over well. So in UB, I trust, I guess, for the running back spot.
No, I think he's a good fit, John. And behind this offensive line, I don't think it's going to be hard for guys, to get holes. And we're not going to be running as much zone blocking as everyone thinks. So Dennison and that staff is gonna have to, have a good mix of gap, man, and zone principles, because our offensive line isn't totally fit for zone blocking in year one under this new regime. So there is going to have to be a good mix of those concepts, and you see UB is running, and there's a nice zone run there. UB ran all types of run concepts. So I mean, whether he sticks or not, whether he has a good shot, I mean, I think any of these guys do. I mean, they all bring different things, especially behind this offensive line. So it's going to be a just like the receiver position. I think that backup running back position is going to be one to watch. And I know, John, when we let Gillislee, when we didn't, match that offer from the Patriots, I know you were livid. You were totally livid because he was a top 20 player on this team.
Oh, man, yeah. I think it's more of just how he lost him. I thought he had a chance to keep him, and then he went to a divisional rival. And, I mean, and if you look at all the Pro Football Focus stats, he was like the number one productive running back in the league last year. I mean, granted on his, minimal carry and such, but, at some point you have to not get bullied by the Patriots any longer. And I know to some people say, well, it's a second or third string running back. They're easily replaced. And I get that, but at some point there's chemistry. You're losing out. Players are like, well, they don't, there could be some sort of animosity amongst the players. Like, geez, they don't value their players. He's only getting $4 million or $6 million over 2 years, and he's valuable. So I was a little upset that we didn't retain him, just because I think he's a good player. I thought he was one of the better players on our team last year. I thought if we would have played him in the Pittsburgh game, we could have won that game, no question, because they didn't give him the ball enough, and Shady just didn't have the cuts that he's used to making because of the sloppy field conditions. And where Gillislee, he was an uncut guy, could have just, and so that hurt my feelings a little bit. It's like, here we go again, the Patriots poaching our guys from us. I mean, they could take Gilmore, go ahead and take him, but, Gillislee and Hogan and things like that, and maybe it was Doug Whaley's fault by not putting a higher tender on him. But I still think I don't know what our cap looks like today, but I felt like we at least had enough money to retain him, and I may be wrong with that, but it certainly we lost a good player. Obviously, if he's good enough for the Patriots, he's good enough for us, Eric. That's the way I look at it, and so it is what it is, but someone's got to step up in that role now. That's really all it breaks down to, is who's going to fill that role. Is it Jonathan Williams? I don't know. I'd like to see him become more explosive, hold on to the ball a little better. So, I have my doubts about him. And obviously behind him, there's not much left. I mean, Mike Tolbert's a good, short yardage, change of pace guy every once in a while, but you can't rely on him to be your backup running back. And, who is there from there? A couple undrafted guys and some practice squad players. So I still think that position went from a position of strength to a position of possibly need behind Shady, because there's not much behind him now. And the way we run the ball, Eric, I mean, you got to have that guy. I don't know.
I think, it was, John, I think it had to do – they placed their value on him as a backup running back behind this offensive line. They placed a value on him financially and how much they wanted to commit to the running back position overall. And, we would have had to put – I think it was a $4 million cap hit this year, which the Patriots worked into that deal, knowing that it would be an issue for us. And so, you know what, I stand by what they did primarily because they made the decision and they stuck with it. Now, if they would have matched that, they would have looked stupid. Then why wouldn't they put a second-round tender on the guy initially? So the conviction in the move, to me, screams things are under control. And you know what? It sucks losing a good player like that averaged over 3 yards a carry after contact. But it's another thing where you got to start thinking about the future. I mean, is Gillislee a guy that could start on a team? John, probably for you probably say, yeah, I don't think he can. I haven't seen it. And I don't think he can be a starter in the league. If Shady were to go down, God forbid, if he were to go down next year, can Gillislee carry the load? I don't know that he can because he has never done it.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'm itching right now. Get in. John, give me a chance, buddy, to talk you off the ledge, okay?
Yeah.
Look, dude, we fell in love. I feel like the backup running back spot has turned into the backup quarterback spot. I love Tashard Choice. I thought he should have got more carries. I know I might sound nuts. I thought he had potential. I liked him at Dallas, kind of, somebody I bought in. I could be wrong for buying into that guy. Maybe not. But, like, when Carlos Williams had to hold the load by himself, he couldn't do it. When Mike Gillislee had to hold the load by himself, I'm sorry, it wasn't the same impact. There is totally something about the changeup. The thing I worry about Jonathan Williams is his ball security. But if you work at it diligently, and this is the same guy in Adrian Peterson I'm going to bring up that came back from a ACL like Wolverine and broke, records running the ball, was within 20 yards of Dickerson or like 6 yards or something crazy. I mean, that superhuman guy corrected his fumbling issue in one season. I don't know if Jonathan Williams can. Jonathan Williams even said he was coming off an injury. But Eric, what gives me, I think, a lot of confidence that for you, John, I think should give you a lot of confidence is Eric always brings up the point of Shanahan and being the guy who has created that dime a dozen running back spot. And frankly, I don't care if somehow they find cap room and they even bring in a rental player running back. They're going to be on the shelf. You need a guy who can hit a hole. At the same time, that vet min might be a little too much. So hopefully you can find that guy that can do it on the cheap. And I understand that the Patriots picked him up, but the Patriots could also be in a situation like the Bills were sometimes you got to spend money. And I know they didn't have a cap floor, the Bills, when they signed Chris Kelsey. Don't ask me how they got there, but they paid how this got there, but they paid him too much money. And I feel like them taking Gillislee hurts us. It's more like a jab. And honestly, I don't know how long the Patriots can be cocky for because they're kind of getting a little too cocky taking our players, but I don't think it's a stab. I don't know, man. $4 million for that guy.
This year, and then $2 million next year. So, I mean, to me, he's a player. He had 9 touchdowns last year. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. Granted, this is all with limited touches and change of pace type of a player. But again, he always got those touchdowns when you needed them. He's no nonsense. He cuts it. He hits it outside, and he can break it too. He has breakaway speed. And of course, if the Patriots valued him enough to give him that kind of a deal, and a player that we're going to have to see again 2 times a year for however many years, I think it's in our best interest to keep East. And not only that, they tendered him late in the process, right? So we had already started some of our conditioning work, getting in with the coaches. So he was in some of these new coaches' playbooks, things like that, and then they go poach him. So not only do they get a great player from us, but they get a little intel too because they got our players were around our coaches by this point, and it's just it's the mad scientist over in New England. Obviously, they know what they're doing. And I just felt we should, even though we might have had to take a little bit of a hit financially, it's at least saying, hey, man, don't come over here messing with my guys. I'm not doing that anymore. Go out and scout your own players. These are our guys. I might have to pay a little extra money right now, but you know what? Don't come over here looking for this shit anymore. Because personally, I just thought it was one of those kind of bullying type deals.
It was trashy, dude. It was real trashy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that really pissed
They definitely
me off
bullied us. They did.
I don't get it, though. Pay Gilmore all that money. Go for it. I mean, all it takes, John, is one, I hate to say it, but what if they catch an injury bug in New England? I mean, how long can you skate by? I mean, they're due for something huge to just, derail. You can't.
Well, you think about it last year, Dave. It's like they had Brady out for the first 4 weeks, and they still went 3-1. Gronk was out the whole season. They still went to the Super Bowl. So, we have to beat them physically. We have to beat them mentally. We have to be better than them in all phases. We have to be better prepared than they are. And that's hard to do because they're a team that's been going through this process for 2 decades now. So, and I value what they value is because it's proven. So they value Gillislee so that I do as well. And he's already on my team, so I'm sure as hell going to keep him. That was the way I felt about that. So unless you can – and we didn't address it in the draft, that position, and, whether or not there was a player at those particular picks to take, I don't know. But we're going to have to find a guy that can fill that role because it's an important role, especially in a heavy run system. So that's the way I feel about that.
What if you look at it like you just got rid of Gillislee, right? Which I agree. Like, yeah, you're like, John, you're honestly talking me back towards your way every time you talk. I mean, I'm seeing, I really see both ways, man. I'm open-minded with it. But let's be real here. Any other team who takes a guy like Castle for a lower pick, gets him into a higher pick, you get a guy off the street like Gillislee on the street multiple times, and you turn him into a pick. And now we're talking about these turnkey operations in this draft. I kind of think or these turnkey players, I think Gillislee has kind of helped contribute to that. And thank you for your production, because that's the only way I can look at it now, because I think Belichick, he has such a good system where, I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of a little nervous, not to derail this a little bit. I'm a little nervous if the Bills are going to be playing primarily a cover 3. I mean, there's a lot of – I think Tom Brady with his own – going up against his own defense, I think he could shred us even more.
Well, he'll shred us regardless.
He's going to shred us regardless, yeah. I wouldn't even worry about that, honestly.
Four, though? That's the key. Can we get pressure with our front 4? Because at that point, we can put more guys out there in coverages. Right. And if we can get pressure with our front 4, we'll be fine. The only thing I worry about that is our depth behind our front 4. Because in a 4-man front, you're going to have to come in waves. And do we have depth? Yeah, we're going to have to come in waves. And if we don't have the depth behind that for those front 4 guys, how are we going to last third, fourth quarter and be able to win these games and get the pressures we need late in games? That's another area I feel as though we're a little bit weakened is our D-line depth. I think we're good on the front 4. Behind that, I'm not so sure. So, it's to me, the Patriots, bar none, have a great roster this year. I mean, it's same with Miami. I really think those two teams have done a ton to improve their teams. And certainly I think our third in line in there, just being real with it, I'd like to say we're the best team in the division, but, that's certainly not the case. But I think it's not only is it the Patriots we got to worry about, I think it's Miami too. And so it's going to be interesting. I think to Eric's point earlier, or Dave's point, it's more or less, or it might have been the guy that called in, was this year is more or less to build up for next year. So we'll see. Right. We'll see how this plays out.
As far as the D-line goes, real quick, Dave, I'll jump in and then you can follow up. As far as the waves go and rolling those guys in past the front 4 starters, I'm not as worried. I would have liked to bring in another edge rusher, but as far as interior goes, I mean, you got to think about it. We got Jarrell Worthy and Adolphus Washington sitting the bench, behind Kyle and Marcel. And then you brought in. I believe he is. Is he not?
I didn't.
I saw Worthy working out, so I think he's.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's still on that team.
Sorry, guys.
He's starting to make me question myself. And then, they brought in Ryan Davis, who can play as an edge rusher and as a D tackle on, those wide 9 looks. He played a lot of, D tackle in those kind of looks when he was with the Jaguars and Cowboys. So, I would have liked them to bring in a younger pass rusher, but I'm not too worried about that as far as the waves go and rolling those guys through, because, Mike Waffle and that staff, they do a great job of teaching the technique and how to, pass rush and counter moves and stuff like that. So it is going to come down to that, and it always does come down to that, especially when you're playing, the Dolphins, who like to spread you out, and the Patriots that like to spread you out. So, Dave, your last point. We're going to wrap it up after that.
Yeah. Sorry about the Worthy thing. I'm stoked that he's on a roster. That's a second-round pick that you get to see him use. He came to the Bills. It's a good value pickup, I thought, last year. As far as the D-line's concerned, I look at that like the litmus test for Sean McDermott. How smart are you? Because we saw Dog Marone come in here. And he's some offensive genius. Yet you're telling me mid-year 2 that you finally popped in the tape to see how Spiller was used, and you couldn't figure that out before you got the job, how Spiller was used. So if you are a common sense guy and Sean McDermott is as advertised, hey, get this D line and you're as detailed with your book and all this crap you got, bud. All right, cool. Well, I hope you popped on the D line from the Pettin, from Schwartz up to Rex Ryan, and you see how these guys were used well. Because not for nothing, if you can't figure out how to get this defensive line together, your head is shoved squarely straight up your ass, and you ain't running this team right as far as I'm concerned, because that should be the easiest thing to transfer right over. We've already seen it work, and Shaq Loss is going to be running straight. Get the quarterback in this defense. That's what he's going to do. Stop the run, hit the edge. Very basic. Couple things for him to watch. That's it. So, the D line getting together is a litmus test, I think, for Sean McDermott.
Definitely, and it's a good thing he's coached that side of the ball, and he's brought in a wealth of experience to coach up that side of the ball. So we're gonna wrap it up for today. Dave, go ahead and plug everything, man. Plug everything for Numb Bills Fan Podcast, buddy.
All right, guys, thank you. So find me on Twitter at Numb Bills Fan. I am Dave. NumbBillsFan.com. I do a podcast with one of my best friends in the world, Adam D. You can find him on Twitter, NumbBills Adam D. We're also part of the Punch Drunk Sports Podcast Network, and they have a sports podcast network for pretty much comedians doing podcasts. I guess I'm considered a comedian. I don't know. I just say what's on my mind. But they're great dudes. Love their podcast, too, if you like general sports. So please, NumbBillsFan.com. We try to put out content weekly, and all because it's off season. Don't think that in June, when it's slow for everybody else, that we're going to be slow. We'll always have something interesting to listen to while you're at work, playing video games, or whatever hell you do. I love audio. I'm not much of a writer, and if I write, it'll probably end up on cover one because I'd rather send it there first. So thank
yes,
you,
sir.
Erik and Jon, for all this. Really, you guys have been awesome today.
No, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. And one final plug, it's for our Sabres partners, Beyond the Blade. They're at BTB Hockey on Twitter. They have a great podcast. They do a lot of scouting reports, kind of like what I do. I cover one for football. They do it for our hockey team. And, there's a lot of changes going there. They're looking for their GM. They're looking for their coaches. So, they're in a transition stage too, as far as the organization goes for the Sabres. So follow them on Twitter, get to their podcast, get to them on SoundCloud, find them, and because they have some great information, not just players that are in our organization, but, guys that are overseas that may be coming up. So they have scouting reports on that. So go ahead and follow them on Twitter as well. Guys, that was quite the jam-packed episode. And until next time, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, too.
Take care, guys.
See ya.